They skipped my VP announcement party because it would make my sister look bad. Now she's been fired for embezzlement while I'm running the company they always wanted her to lead. Growing up, I always knew I was the backup plan. My parents made no secret of it. While my sister got the corner desk in Dad's home office to do her homework, I did mine at the kitchen table between Mom's grocery lists and takeout menus. When college application time came around, they hired a private consultant for her business program applications while I filled out my own forms with guidance from my high school counselor. The day I graduated with my business degree, they were already talking about how I could help support the family firm, while my sister finished her specialized training. The family firm, a mid-sized accounting practice that had been Dad's pride and joy for 23 years. He built it from nothing, working 16-hour days in our basement before finally renting that small office downtown. Mom had been his first employee, handling reception and basic bookkeeping until they could afford real staff. I spent 2 years after graduation doing exactly what they expected, filing papers, managing appointments, learning the basics of their client relationships. My sister was still in her master's program, studying advanced financial management and tax law. Every family dinner conversation revolved around her upcoming thesis defense, her internship interviews, her future role as the firm's heir apparent. When I told them I'd been interviewing at larger companies, Mom's face went pale. She set down her coffee mug so hard it cracked against the granite counter. Dad just stared at me like I'd announced I was joining the circus. They couldn't understand why I'd want to leave what they saw as my guaranteed future. But I needed to know if I could make it on my own merit, not just as someone's daughter filling a predetermined role. The job offer came on a Tuesday. Vice President of Operations at a company with revenues that dwarfed everything my parents had ever imagined. The salary alone was more than their firm's best year. I was 26 years old and being handed responsibilities that most people spent decades working toward. I called them immediately, my voice shaking with excitement. The response was lukewarm congratulations followed by concerns about how this would affect the family business timeline. They'd already started telling clients that both daughters would eventually join the firm, creating a real family legacy. My news complicated their narrative. The promotion party was scheduled for the following weekend. I'd reserved a private room at the nicest restaurant in town, invited extended family, old friends, college roommates. I wanted to celebrate this moment properly, to acknowledge how far I'd come from that kitchen table homework setup. 3 days before the party, Mom called. Her voice had that careful, measured tone she used when delivering unwelcome news. They wouldn't be attending. Dad had scheduled an important client meeting that weekend, and Mom needed to prepare materials. But the real reason came out during our increasingly heated phone conversation. They were worried about how my success would make my sister feel. My sister, who was still 6 months away from graduating. My sister, who had never expressed anything but happiness about my achievements. My sister, who actually seemed relieved that family expectations weren't entirely focused on her anymore. But our parents had constructed this elaborate fantasy where she would graduate, join the firm, quickly advance to partner, and eventually take over while I provided reliable support in a secondary role. My promotion disrupted their carefully planned timeline. If I achieved executive status first, it would undermine their succession narrative. I spent that weekend celebrating with friends and colleagues while my parents attended a client dinner that could have been rescheduled. The absence felt like a physical weight in my chest, this hollow space where their pride should have been. Other parents were calling their friends, posting on social media, genuinely bursting with excitement about their children's achievements. Mine were treating my success like an inconvenient complication. Update 1. 6 months later, my sister graduated and joined the family firm as planned. She was smart, capable, everything they'd hoped she would be. But the dynamics had shifted in ways none of us anticipated. Clients who had heard about my corporate promotion kept asking why I wasn't involved in the family business. Some assumed I'd left because of internal problems or family conflicts. My parents spent increasing amounts of time managing these conversations, explaining why their executive-level daughter wasn't part of their business while maintaining confidence in their succession plan. The explanations grew more elaborate and defensive over time. Meanwhile, my sister was struggling with the pressure. She'd always been academically successful, but managing client relationships and business development required different skills. Dad was micromanaging her every decision, constantly comparing her progress to where he'd been at her age, forgetting that he'd built the business gradually over decades while she was expected to seamlessly step into leadership. The family dinners became tense affairs. Mom would update me on my sister's client acquisitions like she was defending her choice of successor. Dad would mention my corporate achievements only in passing, usually in the context of how different skills were needed for family business management. My sister looked increasingly exhausted, carrying the weight of expectations that had been building since childhood. I was thriving in my new role, leading major projects, earning recognition from industry publications, building a reputation that extended far beyond my family's small circle. But every professional victory felt hollow because the people who should have been proudest were treating my success like an embarrassing deviation from their master plan. The breaking point came during Thanksgiving dinner. Dad made an offhand comment about how corporate executives were disconnected from real business relationships, unlike professionals who built long-term client trust. He was looking directly at me when he said it. 26 years of conditional love and strategic disappointment crystallized into that single moment of casual dismissal. I left dinner early and didn't speak to them for 3 weeks. Update 2. 2 years passed. My sister had made partner ahead of schedule, which our parents celebrated as vindication of their long-term planning. The family firm was doing well, though not growing as aggressively as they'd hoped. My corporate career had accelerated beyond anything I'd imagined. I was being recruited by executive search firms, invited to speak at industry conferences, mentioned in articles about rising business leaders. We'd settled into an uneasy peace where family gatherings focused on safe topics and professional updates were kept brief and general. My sister and I had grown closer during this period, bonding over our shared experience of parental expectations and career pressure. She confided that she sometimes felt trapped in a role she'd never chosen, just accepted as inevitable. Then everything exploded at once. The call came on a Wednesday morning. My sister had been arrested at her office, led away in handcuffs while clients and staff watched in shock. The charges were extensive: embezzlement, wire fraud, falsification of business records. The amounts were staggering: hundreds of thousands of dollars diverted from client accounts over an 18-month period. My parents were devastated beyond anything I'd ever witnessed. Dad aged 10 years in the span of that phone conversation, his voice breaking as he tried to explain something he didn't understand himself. Mom was alternating between fury and denial, convinced there had been some terrible mistake. The media coverage was brutal. Local business journals, legal newsletters, even the general newspaper covered the story of the trusted family firm partner who had systematically stolen from the clients she was supposed to protect. The firm's reputation, built over 23 years of careful relationship management, crumbled in a matter of days. Clients withdrew their accounts immediately. Lawsuits were filed before the week ended. Professional licensing boards launched investigations. The business that was supposed to be my sister's inheritance was collapsing in real time, taking my parents' retirement security and professional legacy with it. But the real shock was still coming. Final update. The truth emerged during my sister's legal proceedings, when her attorney argued for leniency based on the circumstances that had driven her actions. She hadn't been living beyond her means or funding a secret lifestyle. Every stolen dollar had gone toward covering gambling debts that weren't even hers. Our parents had been gambling for years, apparently. What started as occasional casino visits had escalated into online betting, sports wagering, high-stakes card games. They'd hidden their addiction behind their reputation for financial responsibility, using business credit lines and personal loans to cover increasing losses. My sister had discovered their debts by accident, finding threatening letters from creditors mixed in with business mail. The amounts were catastrophic, more than the business could handle, enough to destroy everything they'd built. She'd made the desperate decision to temporarily borrow from client accounts, planning to replace the money once she figured out a long-term solution. But gambling debts don't stay stable. Every payment led to bigger bets, larger losses, more desperate measures. What started as a short-term fix became a systematic theft operation that consumed her life for over a year. She'd been working 18-hour days, not because she was dedicated to building the family legacy, but because she was frantically managing multiple sets of books while searching for ways to cover increasingly obvious discrepancies. The perfect daughter, the chosen successor, the one who was supposed to fulfill their dreams of dynasty building, she'd been sacrificing her career, her freedom, and ultimately her future to protect their secret shame. The family business closed permanently. The professional licenses were revoked. The legal settlements consumed every asset my parents had accumulated over decades of work. My sister was sentenced to prison time, though the judge acknowledged the extraordinary circumstances that had led to her choices. During the trial, more details emerged about the extent of their gambling operation. They'd been traveling to casinos in neighboring states, participating in high-stakes private games, even taking gambling cruises where they'd lost tens of thousands of dollars in single weekends. The addiction had consumed their judgment completely while they maintained the facade of responsible business owners and family leaders. The irony was overwhelming. While they'd been criticizing my corporate career as disconnected from real relationships and sustainable success, they'd been destroying their own business through compulsive gambling. While they'd been worried about my achievements overshadowing my sister's development, they'd been creating the pressure that ultimately led to her desperate choices. 6 months after the firm closed, I received an unexpected call from a major corporation that had been following my career progression. They were looking for a new CEO, someone with my combination of operational experience and leadership track record. The offer was extraordinary, leading a company with thousands of employees and revenues in the billions. I accepted the position, becoming the head of exactly the kind of major corporation my parents had always dismissed as impersonal and disconnected from real business values. The press release about my appointment mentioned my background and qualifications, but made no reference to my family's former business or recent legal troubles. My parents had wanted a family business dynasty with their chosen daughter at the helm. Instead, they got a corporate executive daughter running the kind of company they'd never imagined being connected to, while their chosen successor served a prison sentence for trying to save them from their own destructive choices. The celebration party for my CEO appointment was attended by industry leaders, board members, and colleagues who understood the magnitude of the opportunity. My parents were invited, but they declined. Dad was working odd jobs to pay legal fees, and Mom was managing their downsized living situation in a small apartment across town. But my sister sent me a letter from prison. She was proud of my success, she wrote, and sorry that their family's problems had created such complicated dynamics around my achievements. She'd always known I was capable of extraordinary things, even when our parents' planning made it seem like my success was somehow competitive with hers. She was right about one thing. I was capable of extraordinary things. I just had to leave their limited vision of success behind to discover what I could actually accomplish when family expectations weren't constraining my possibilities. The family business they'd wanted me to support had crumbled because of their own choices. The daughter they'd groomed for leadership had sacrificed her freedom to protect their secrets. And the backup plan daughter they'd never quite celebrated was now running a major corporation, making decisions that affected thousands of employees and millions in revenue. Their legacy plans had collapsed completely, but my actual legacy was just beginning.